Coming up, a special interview with Sam Sorbo. Sam is a remarkable woman. She is a film producer. She is a historian. She's an author. She's an activist. She's a radio talk show host. And she knows exactly what's happening in American public schools and in universities and why you should homeschool. I'm Dr. Duke, and this is The Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today, we're sitting down with author, radio host, and movie producer Sam Sorbo to discuss why kids are struggling so much in today's public schools, why academic achievement means so little to colleges looking to diversify their campuses, and why parents seem to forget how big of an impact they should have on their children's educational lives. Before we kick things off, we are about to experience a huge weather event in the United States. Bone-chilling temperatures, all sorts of travel difficulties. Ask yourself, can you feed yourself and your kids for several weeks at a time with just the food you have at home? And if not, it's time to build an emergency food supply. It's the right thing to do. I trust the people at My Patriot Supply, and you ought to as well. A simple 2-week food kit gets you started. This week, save $70 when you visit preparewithduke.com. That's preparewithduke.com. These kits include meals that last up to 25 years. They're tasty, and especially on an empty belly, they're tasty. 25 years in storage and are guaranteed to arrive at your house in just 2 days. Go to preparewithduke.com right now to save $70 on your order. Again, preparewithduke.com. Today I have the privilege of speaking with a great advocate for homeschooling, author, a radio host, Sam Sorbo. Many of you may know Sam and her husband, Kevin Sorbo, the actor who starred in the TV show Hercules and Andromeda, and recently has been featured in a series of Christian films, including God's Not Dead and Let There Be Light. And that's really important before we begin. Sam and her husband, Kevin, are really advocates for traditional family values, Christian education, and Christian worldview. You know, I've listened to your radio program in the past, and I have seen your activism, and you're the kind of mom, I think, that has the ability to wake other moms up, and that needs to be done. And so I want to talk to you today about public schools. To what degree are they redeemable? The thing I hear when I go all across the country is, well, Dr. Pesta, I know the things you are telling me are true, but my school's not bad, and my teachers would never do this. How would you handle that question?
Well, you know, people say to me, but, you know, we go to the good school. And I say, good compared to what? We're 27th in the world. We're the United States of America, and we're only 27th in the world sort of across the board for education. Our education system is no longer about education. And we were sort of asleep at the wheel when they kind of did the bait and switch, and they shifted it. And it is now about indoctrination. They're teaching more concerned with emotions than with logic. And the proof for that is if you look at how they're teaching Common Core math now, it's an abomination. They're removing the math and they're adding a bunch of magic. And my view on that is they're really trying to remove logic from the thought process. And so our thoughts will be governed by our emotions more than by a logical assessment or analysis, in which case we're much easier to control, because then all you have to do is sort of raise the ire of people, and they're easily controlled.
Yeah, and you said something really important. It's not about critical thinking and logic, it's about emotion, but it's even worse than that, it seems to me. They're not just ignoring logic. Now they're arguing the social justice warriors. They're arguing that logic is white supremacy, that correct answers, focusing on correct answers in math class is a kind of white privilege, that empiricism, that the underpinning of science itself, these are all white male inventions that oppress non-white students. And so they're waging war on logic and critical thinking, and they're giving kids a kind of an emotional ability to reject correctness, to reject education, to reject achievement, because all those things now, and success, all those things are white guy things.
Yeah, sadly, so I on the radio show yesterday, I was talking about an article that came out where colleges are now sort of eschewing the SATs. They don't want, they're going to ignore the SATs and admit students based on what? Based on superficial assessment of skin color, race, gender, probably even sort of sexual persuasion, instead of the academics. They're literally saying, no, we're going to not look at the SAT scores because the academic assessment is discriminatory. And the sad thing is, there's a young girl who was admitted to, I think it's Michigan State University, from Detroit, and she was her class valedictorian. She scored an 800 on the SATs. Top score is 1600. She scored it at 50%. She scored an 800. She was the valedictorian in her high school class. She is struggling with the remedial math course that they offer at MSU that's required, and she wants to go into some kind of engineering. And so this is sort of the product of telling these kids that it doesn't matter how they do academically, it only matters how they feel about it, and that they can do and be anything that they want to be, and that they're already perfect the way they are. And I mean, everything is antithetical to what education used to be about, what the traditional definition of education is. We're going to face a big crisis in this country if we have bridges and roads that are constructed by kids who have gone through Common Core math.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And, you, as I know you know, the newest NAEP scores, the way we measure high school and middle school achievement, Detroit, Michigan has the lowest NAEP scores of any major city in the country. Only about 8%, 5%, 6% of Detroit school kids are actually proficient at reading at the 8th grade level and math at the 8th grade level. They're really behind. So it doesn't surprise me that getting basically an F, a 50% on the SATs, makes you a valedictorian. It's still 40, 42 points higher than most kids are scoring. And yet our response is not to stop this ridiculous system and sit down and give these kids what they need to succeed. It is to socially promote them, to pass them, to tell them, like you said, especially if you're a minority or a woman, you tell them you're valuable and you're successful because of your superficial identities. We're not going to ask you to actually learn anything. This is how bad it is in the public schools. And I go back to our original question. As a mom and dad, given that this is under the guise of Common Core and the federalization of education that's taken place in the last 10 years, how can you argue that in your schools, even if they are highly funded schools in very wealthy neighborhoods, you're still using the same curriculum, you're still taking the same tests, and consequently, if you're in a very elite suburb, what your kids are learning is that they're privileged, that what they know and how hard they work and their grades and their achievements really don't count, because it's not about them, it's about their white privilege.
Well, the sad thing is that, we're promoting kids who haven't earned the promotion, and we're setting them up for failure is what's happening. And so this young woman was accepted into college where she doesn't really belong because she can't compete. And so she will fail because because college today is still somewhat academically focused. She'll fail. And she was promoted and she was told, add a girl, that's the way to get it done. And the other thing is she's rewarded for being Black, being female. Those are two things that she can do nothing about. So if that's her claim to fame, right, if that's her claim to accreditation somehow, then what about people who want to be doing stuff that they can't do anything about their gender or their race, but that's supposed to be the thing that qualifies them? It's pathetic.
It is, and even the universities, as a 25-year university professor, the universities are dumbing down. You're right, they're more academically attuned than the middle and high schools, but they're dumbing down. I have a college professor friend. He works part-time for NASA. He's got 2 degrees in mathematics. He's a great math professor. He was assigned by his university to teach 2 sections of 7th grade math for the incoming college kids because that's where they all were. This is the thing is that the universities now, they're taking these kids, almost all of whom aren't ready to do math and reading and science at the right level, and they're adjusting their expectations down.
So I'm going to drop something on you that I may get in trouble for, but our college system today and our education system is a Ponzi scheme. Our schools are focused on what? College prep and career readiness. So our schools tell our students that they have to go to college, that the only way to succeed is to go to college, when frankly, that's not true. And there's a bunch of evidence that points to how untrue that is. Steve Jobs, the Microsoft guy.
Bill Gates.
I'm not. The names are right. Gates, the guy, the Virgin Atlantic guy. Like there are plenty of examples of people who are extraordinary, right? Who did it outside the system. But there are lots of examples of people who are in the trades who are very successful who didn't finish college, or at least if they finished college, they'll tell you that they didn't need college to get where they are today. So our schools are setting our kids up. They're saying college prep and career readiness. You have to go to college to succeed. That's wrong. But why? Why are they doing that? Because of the money. Because the colleges want the money. Why are the colleges graduating children who with degrees in nothing, with degrees in things that can't possibly get them a paying job? Because of the money. Because they're all in it for the money.
People forget that one of the first things that happened back in 2009 when Barack Obama became president is they started to federalize the student loan programs, right? So used to be you had to go to a bank and you had to tell a bank officer, hey, I need this much money for college. And if you told the bank officer, hey, my daughter wants to major in women's studies and basket weaving, the bank wasn't going to give them the money. But now the federal government owns it. And this is where the Ponzi scheme comes in, right? The federal government takes care of this, and so the feds are giving all the money to the kids in loans, no matter what they major in. We're giving money, taxpayer money, to kids who are majoring in things that they will never be able to find careers in or ever be able to pay back their $30,000, $40,000, $60,000, $80,000 student loans for. That's the scheme. And the universities don't care about these kids. So you take a 4-year degree with us, you get $100,000 in debt. That's on you. We don't have any responsibility. Or if for 2 years, they take these kids, they get $30,000 in debt and they fail out. I've said this before. For every kid you allow into universities, if you're going to give them federal loans, the university should be on the hook for paying back 50% of that loan if in the first 2 or 3 years that kid is not gainfully employed.
I love that. Good luck with that.
I mean, it'll never happen.
No, of course not. I mean, now we have presidential candidates who are saying, hey, we should just write off all the loans. The federal government should just pay for students to go to college. That's just, I mean, if you subsidize it, you will get more of it. And that's what happened with the college loan program. And the schools figured out, well, this is free money. This is just, if the government's just going to lend everybody enough money to go to college, then we'll just raise our tuition rates until we're making more money. There's so many colleges that have huge endowments. They don't need to make the money, but they do. And here's what's great. Here's the silver lining in this cloud, right? Is we've just had this tremendous ruse of parents paying to get their kids into college, paying $500,000 just for the placement. So now it's becoming a little bit more clear to people that the colleges are not academically minded, they're money minded. And that's an important distinction. And so hopefully more of that information will come out and parents will start thinking twice about spending that kind of money or borrowing that kind of money at least to send their kid into an institution that's basically just going to try to brainwash them with socialism.
And isn't it interesting, you mentioned socialism, isn't it interesting that our universities are the primary places in America today that still push a socialist worldview, right? Our faculty, our professors, they're the places that are convincing young minds that socialism is somehow morally and economically superior. And yet, as you just pointed out, many of these major universities have billion-dollar endowments that they don't have to tap into at all. They're not taxed by the government. This is tax-free money. And they keep taking more and more public money and fattening up these endowments that never get spent. Meanwhile, your kids are getting tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt.
I'd love to know if Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax applies to Harvard.
Exactly, and their endowments. And I'll bet you it doesn't, right? But then again, this is the same Elizabeth Warren who took a job away, an affirmative action job away from a Native American faculty member so she could launch her own $1 million career. So I wouldn't expect much out of Pocahontas on that score.
But back to your point, I have parents come up to me and say, wow, what you said about the indoctrination that's happening in our colleges, I totally agree with it. I mean, our daughter comes back from Stanford or whatever college they mention, right? comes back for the holidays, and we have to sort of unindoctrinate her. We have to, work to talk some more sense into her. And I just look at them and I go, and you're paying how much money for the privilege of trying to keep your daughter in the sane column? It's ridiculous. Parents need to wake up. They need to. Here's the thing, and it's pretty simple with home education. Parents are afraid to home educate, okay? And the reason is because they were never taught to home educate, right? The reason is because in our public school system, we are taught what we cannot do. We are taught, and we are well taught, that we can only do things that we have been taught. For instance, by a teacher standing at a blackboard, okay? And so the parent says to me, I can't homeschool because I don't know how. And I say to them, but you went to high school, right? You graduated, right? Why do you feel incapable of teaching a third grader? And the reason is because you went into a system that told you you were incapable of doing anything that you hadn't been formally taught. But your life has taught you you are capable, fully capable of doing things that are brand new to you because you teach yourself. You learn how to do those things that are brand new to you. And home education is simply a new thing that's brand new to you. So hunker down and get her done, learn how to do it, and take care of your children. Because here's the thing, you're setting them up for failure if you send them back into the same school that turned out the likes of you, the person who feels incapable of teaching a third grader.
It is a vicious cycle. And I think most moms and dads fail to realize, and I try to wake them up to this, you're teaching your kids all the time. You may not know it, but from the moment your kids are born, you're a teacher. In fact, you do more teaching of children than you do almost anything else. And the idea that you can teach your kids manners or teach your kids how to throw a softball or teach your kids how to, clean their room and have self-discipline and self-respect. If you can do all those things, you can teach them third grade math. You can teach them how to read at a fifth grade level. It's not that hard.
Well, I also say, up until the age of 5, you are the teacher for your child, right? You've taught them to tie their shoes, you've taught them manners, maybe how to hold a fork and knife, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, you're no good anymore. I mean, you're better off not having outside influences between you and your child in teaching them. So why at the age of 5 are you all of a sudden incompetent and you have to bring them over to the school? And I talk about this also, that the schools form a wedge between the child and the parent. So when you start to have behavioral problems with your child, it's because you've tacitly told your child that the school is better than you are and that the school's authority is higher than yours. And so, of course, they're going to challenge your authority.
Yeah, and that's one of as a way of winding this down. I think you hit on something that really is the problem. Our public schools and our public institutions of learning have decided that they're better parents than you, and that you really shouldn't educate your parents, at your kids as parents. And so many parents have been intimidated into thinking that they can't do it, like you said before. And so we got to get back to that. And so I think your message, and I'll give you the last word on this, your message is, I think mine is, right, that there are no safe spaces in schools anymore. That if you don't start taking full responsibility for your kids' education, you're going to lose those kids.
Well, that's true, and that's why I wrote my book. So I'll do a quick plug for my book. They're Your Kids, an inspirational journey from self-doubter to homeschool advocate, because that was me. I completely self-doubted. So if you doubt that you can do it, please get my book, read my book. There are 2 things that I want you to take away. The first is that the schools are incompetent. And so the second is you can beat incompetence. Like the bar is so low and you can beat it, especially because you love your kids. And the schools don't love your kids.
And I can assure you that this is a book well worth reading. And I would be remiss if I let you go. I know you're also working on a film, and I want to get a plug out for that. It's called Miracle in East Texas. Tell us just a little bit about it and when people will be able to watch it.
Oh, wait. How do I? There. Miracle in East Texas, a film that my husband and I did. It's inspired by a true story of the East Texas oil strike. And we've been doing tons of film festivals recently. We've won best narrative, best family film, best faith film. Anyway, we've won a ton of awards. It should be coming out in the spring, so keep an eye out for it. You can go to the website miracleineasttexas.com if you want to sign up for notifications and stuff. And very excited about that film.
Excellent. So an important book to read and a really fun family movie to watch. Sam Sorbo, thank you so much for your time today. And let's get back together at the very least in spring when the movie's out and talk a little bit more about that.
I'd love to. I'd also like to encourage people to go see Let There Be Light. It's streaming on Amazon Prime, and it's available as a DVD. It's a great family Christmas film.
The basic tenet of Christianity.
Whoa. Don't you dare tell me about the love and the compassion of your so-called God.
What do you think it does to the boys to take the death of their brother and use it as part of your carnival act?
Pays the bills.
Clinically dead in the ambulance for 4 minutes. It's a miracle.
I saw Davy, and all I wanted to do was I wanted to put my arms around him. I don't know what to do with it.
You've gotten the best scientific explanation. It hasn't brought you any comfort. Would you consider consulting a different source?
Doc, he is your God, and he's holding out his hand to you. All you gotta do now is take it. Jesus gets whacked, right?
Well, I've never exactly heard it put that way, but yeah.
Follow me here. This ain't brain surgery.
Do you believe that God hears?
God always answers prayers. Sometimes we just don't understand the answers.
This better be good.
That's what I said.
I don't want to lose you.
And that'll do. I want to take a moment and remind you that next week we're doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4 30-minute programs on the socialist destruction of education. What I'm going to talk to you about is one of our lecture series. You may remember some of our lecture series in the past, very popular. It's called The Socialist Destruction of Education, and we're going to take a look at how socialism got its inroads in education, how socialists go about educating kids, and how it became part of the American public school system. So please join us for this 4-part series starting next Monday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'd also like to thank My Patriot Supply for sponsoring today's show. If you have a business, large or small, we'd love to partner with you. Visit freedomproject.com/advertise to get started. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.